Welcome back to Forbidden Knowledge News. I'm your host, Chris Matthew. Tonight, I want to welcome Tobias Beharrell. Tobias is a pioneer in the fields of quantum energy medicine and mind enhancement technologies. With expertise in remote quantum technologies, Tobias sees access to advanced solutions for critical mental, physical, and social health issues. Tobias, how you doing tonight?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing really well, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good. Thanks you for taking the time to do this. I really appreciate it. And I know the potential of human consciousness is so much beyond anything that the powers in control would ever want us to know about, to ever want to learn about ourselves, to learn our full potential as human beings. And you've done some fascinating work. First, I'd like to start off by getting more about your background and telling us what exactly quantum energy medicine is and what got you started down this path.
Well, Chris, you already hit the nail on the head. It's exactly what you're saying. I mean, the fact is, in a world where sort of the big guys that seem to control the world know so much about different technologies, they have different access to different things that so many people don't even know are real, right? So the sad truth, I guess, is that, I mean, these things are used to control people and to, behind closed doors and for sort of nefarious reasons, sometimes militarized in different ways. And yet, when it comes to the science of the soul, the science of energy medicine, all of these things, quantum energy medicine, we can take the same science as some of the nefarious things these guys are using and turn it into something that's very beneficial for us, right? And that's really where I came into it back in 2008. Was a really big year for me because I ended up doing a silly thing and broke my neck in two places. I fell, broke my neck in two places, and the next several years took me on a journey that made me realize that as much as I depended on the modern, high-tech medical system, the experts of our time, it doesn't always work. And it certainly didn't work for me due to the nature of what happened to me. Nothing was hopeful. They couldn't give me anything. One day, I was sitting in a doctor's office, one of the leading not research scientists, but one of the leading neurosurgeons in Canada. And he looked at me and he said, Tobias, these are the words that ring in my head. He said, Tobias, I just suggest that you create the best quality of life for yourself that you can do. And those were fighting words for me. Those were words that, for one thing, they sent me in a psychological loop in the moment. I'm like, no, he did not just say that. But at the same time, I knew that I had to take it into my own hands, and that involved a lot of going outside of the box of traditional things that a lot of people are scared to go outside of, because tradition, coupled with sort of the science perspective so many times says, look, don't look outside of this line, don't cross that line. If you can't prove this, if you can't prove that, then we're not even going to touch it. But I had no choice because I'd been involved with the scientists, with the doctors, with the experts, and it didn't work. So it put me in a position where, well, it put me on a big search, right? It put me on a search, and in the beginning, I really was willing to try anything because I was in a physical state that was really extreme. It was really severe. So there were things, that we look on the internet, we do our research, we hope that we connect with some truth and some expertise outside of that box that I'm talking about. But I think as well as I know, it's hard to find the right information because there's a lot of stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff out there, including things that put people off the track of what's real. So down this path that I took with literally saving myself, I came across a few things. I came across the research of Dr. Marcel Vogel, which many people have heard of Dr. Marcel Vogel relating to specifically cut quartz crystals. Where's my camera? He was a senior research scientist with IBM in California back in the 70s and 80s. And he he correlated the amplification and recording qualities of specifically cut crystals to use to connect with your mind or your thoughts, amplify thoughts, and energetically use to heal the body. Now, that's an advanced way of saying energy healing, right? And so he did, the cool thing with Marcel Vogel was he did the research in the laboratories of IBM, and he had access to all of this equipment. He was the man actually that was part of the invention team of the liquid crystal displays that we use on televisions and the surface of CDs that would record information. So his expertise was vast with these types of devices. But he did all of this research and realized absolutely the effect of consciousness on biology, right? So he was really the first thing I really studied, because I tried so many things, gone to different people, gone to different people. In fact, one of the worst things that I experienced in that 7-year period of trying to fight back to life, well, just one of the many things was I felt very cold because my nervous system was affected by my spinal injuries. And so every day I would actually feel like, when you have the flu and you're bone cold, at least a few hours each day. There was never a day past it never happened. But during that time, I serendipitously got in contact or in touch with a young man in Texas. And he knew quite well about Marcel Vogel and his research and got me into that. One night, this gentleman said to me, "Would you like me to do acupuncture on you to see if I can help your nervous system?" And I thought it was kind of funny because he was 2,000 miles away from where I was. I didn't know how he quite meant to do that. But he actually used a crystal just as the one I showed you. And not a word of a lie. The next morning, I woke up after about 2 years of experiencing that every day, and it never happened that day, the day after him doing that for 20 minutes. And I thought, well, it's just coincidence, and then a week passed, and a month passed, and then years passed, and I never experienced that again. It really opened my mind to the possibilities, the very real possibilities of quantum, distant, remote application. So he was just using a solid-state device, a quartz crystal cut in specific angles that would facilitate the actual process of doing what he did successfully with me. Now, over time, that led me to many other things that I'd heard of in passing, such as Royal Raymond Rife and his frequency generators, machines like that. It took me into chi machines or life force generators with Carl Hans Wells, who a lot of people are aware of. Carl Hans Wells, an American inventor who invented a type of machine that you plug into the wall, and it generates or facilitates the access to chi energy. So I purchased some of these things, did a bit of this, did a bit of that, and it took me further into this journey, realizing, wow, this is really incredible, because not only am I getting better, and not only am I learning things that are actually working to heal me, when even the greatest experts that I could access couldn't do that. I thought, well, this is incredible. It took me on a journey into reality itself, reality bending, because I realized over time the same types of technologies have an effect on reality. So I found that some people were not only using these types of technologies for their health and such things, but they were using them to increase luck, create certain trends that will facilitate, better jobs, things like this. The types of things that I would say, again, most of the world thinks is just something from a movie, right? And so I started working with all of these things, and over time brought myself back to life, ended up making the correlations between the modern day equivalents of what actually are ancient technologies. I mean the pyramids as energy fulcrum energy technologies, when you combine them with the consciousness or trends that you set, intentions that you set into these technologies, they equal what some people would call magic, right? And of course, magic being, in my mind, just science that most people don't understand and certainly aren't taught, because it's something that, you know, is kept from most of the people, or turned into a fantasy in our modern time. That's sort of where it came from.
That's fascinating, and it seems like there's been this campaign over the past however many hundreds of years to suppress these technologies, to suppress what we are as humans. And, you know, it's, you know, you can see the greed and the reasons behind it, the materialistic reasons, but there's also other spiritual reasons behind suppressing this as well, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, because this is something that's been done for time that's so long, so huge a period of time, that I can't even fathom it, no matter how hard I try. It's been done so long, for so long, and it really comes down to what you said. It really, really does come down to greed mixed with a little bit of, I would say, insanity, because it just doesn't make sense. You know, it just doesn't make sense. But absolutely, these people, as I alluded to earlier, these people are using the same knowledge and wisdom, ancient knowledge and wisdom, to control people, well, they created society after society with this knowledge. So it's really a manipulation. So what it comes down to in our time, then this is what excited me so much over the years, as I realized what's happening and how I could put the puzzle pieces together with this, especially in relation to reality bending, or reality, you know, creating, like, changing reality with these things. This is what these people are doing. It's a quantum science. It's absolutely a quantum science. When I started working with some of my quantum equipment, sitting over here on my desk flashing right now, I realized that what people call the matrix is absolutely a quantum system that works the same way, except it's just being used for different purposes. One of the things that I experienced so many times, you know, over those years especially, are things slipping from my mind. Like when you approach certain topics, I'm sure you've heard it before, Chris. You've been talking to people online or whatever, you approach certain topics and suddenly somebody forgets something, or weird things can even happen. Sometimes, you know, people say, oh, my Skype went crazy as soon as we talked about such and such. Things previously I thought were just, you know, I would usually roll my eyes at. I'd be like, oh, come on, it's just too much. Everybody's saying this. I learned over time that I would be crazy to not believe that that's something actually is happening. And I realized over time that that is actually a quantum matrix technology, what we call the matrix. It's sending signals out, frequencies out. Wherever this system originates, I couldn't even tell you. I've certainly heard stories, but I'm not an expert on it. I just have experiences on it. It will push thoughts out of your mind. It will change emotions. It will do all sorts of things to the point where it's hard for people to actually come to their senses, literally come to their senses. So I think so much time has passed that humanity, I'm speaking generally, has experienced this amnesia, or this separation from the senses, that you don't know what you don't know anymore. You literally don't know what's missing, so therefore you don't seek it out. And that's the most powerful, one of the most powerful aspects of this system. So again, it made a huge blast to my reality when I realized, oh my God, I'm using these same technologies as the matrix itself, except I'm using them to help myself, help my mind work, to heal my body, to invigorate what some people will call super senses, all of these types of things, because this is what this technology has applications toward. Again, I tie it back to the ancient technologies. People talk about Atlantis and Lemuria and the civilizations that flourished, and there was, you know, galactic trade, and there was, you know, crops and bountiful food and just art and all of these things. And I believe, in fact, that's absolutely true, and relates very much back to the energy and the technologies and the access that people had back then, apparently, before it was usurped by whoever decided to be greedy and nasty.
Now, you said that we're in sort of like a matrix. Would you say it's a sort of simulated reality or even holographic type situation? What are we actually in here?
That's always an interesting conversation with me. It used to be that it bothered me quite a bit when people would suggest that we're in a reality that isn't real, because the danger that I've always seen with that is that, and I've observed some people then begin to not take reality very seriously. So that's the problem I had with that question. However, over time, I think that I've sort of grown up with it a little bit, sort of matured with that question. And I guess really the way I look at it is similar to when we talk about machine versus biology, right? What's real, what's not real? When in fact, I think it's all real. I think even the simulation is real. I think it's just the way you look at it. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. And would you say that we have the power to, or opportunity to, basically create our own reality as we go?
See, there is the million dollar topic again, because this is what has been obscured and hidden through the ages. It's one of my favorite subjects, Chris, because I realize, it's just hard to believe that most people, and again, I'm not being negative here, I'm just saying it for the way I see it. Most people really do not believe that their thoughts have any power. Isn't that something? You have the churches and all of these institutions and all of these things that clearly use thoughts and manipulation for people. Not that it's all bad. Certainly there's positive things in different outlets of it, but they're doing it all of the time. The governments, the news services, Fox News, right? Come on, the mainstream news, come on, they're doing all of this. They're using thoughts, planting them in people's subconscious, as already I know your listeners certainly understand all of that stuff. I mean, they're doing it all the time, yet much of the population, in fact, the majority of the population thinks if they speak something that's negative, or they give an evil eye, that it actually doesn't have an effect, but everything has an effect, whether tiny or large. Tiny or large. And that goes to another technology that I am working with, which actually monitors in a very real scientific way the coherence of thoughts, emotions, truth, resonance within the electromagnetic field of the body, and how the dance between two or more people happens when they're feeling different ways and thinking different thoughts. And it absolutely has a huge impact on communication, verbal and nonverbal communication. I guess to take it down to the foundation of what we're talking about, sort of in terms that, sort of people have used in the past, we're really talking about the difference between a blessing and a curse. It's just different language, right? Well, I'm telling you, if I have people thinking about Tobias, I would prefer that they're thinking in a positive way, because I'm telling you it makes a difference. And this is along the same lines as we're talking about with the quantum technologies and applications. These things have an effect on biology, on reality, the physical world, the physical body, the polymorphic field, the unseen dimensions, all of it. So much we are not taught about, so much, and obviously because they don't want us to know, because they want to be in control, whoever they are, right?
Right. And, the ancients, not only were they in touch with these energies, but they seem to be in touch with entities as well. They used to have, it's what it seemed, regular communication with otherworldly or off-world entities. Have you ever had any contact experiences?
Yeah, I have, in many, many ways. And this is such an eye-opener for a lot of people, and relates again to everything we're talking about here, because it has to do with consciousness and awareness. And that's another thing that's part of this parcel that has been shut down in people. of our time through the main culprits. We all know GMO foods, fluoridated water, 5G, all of these things and many more. It's been shut down. So it's been relegated to science fiction and fantasy once again for most of the population. But what took its place? What did take its place? I would say in large part the internet. So instead of people using their own faculties, their own senses and communication with other things, information gathering through the quantum reality, the quantum system with their own mind, their own senses, not just in the brain, but in the chest, in the stomach, their senses, their sensory perceptions. Instead, they type it in, they Google search it. They Google search it. Hello, Google. It's like, hello, Google God, tell me the truth. And you know what? You can't depend on it because it's bull. Most of it is so much is bull. There's so much stuff out there, right? So again, it just accentuates the importance of being able to return to a state where we can communicate in different ways, access different information, and along with that, through my experiences, I learned that, wow, especially when the more healthy I get, and the more I can use some of these quantum systems, whether it's a crystal in my hand, like Marcel Vogel used, or an energy frequency generator with a specific frequency for different brain waves or different functions, or the quantum system over there on set on what have you. We can get information like this is the internet. Like this is the internet, and that includes communication with other things in other places sometimes. Absolutely, it does.
Now, would you say that you would have to be careful with, the types of entities that you're trying to contact?
Absolutely. It's funny, just through my work and my practice and everything that I've done for all of these years, people sometimes get a misguided impression that I do that. I do just that a lot. And in fact, usually when the subject comes up, I say to them, look, I don't even like doing that usually. It's uncomfortable for me because I would no sooner go to the shopping mall up the street and walk around, walking up to strangers saying, hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? Hi, I'm Tobias. Because, you have to use prudence and there has to be a reason, right? So yeah, in answer to your question, yeah, absolutely, you have to be careful because it doesn't matter where people are, where things are. There's a little bit of everything everywhere. It's just the way things are. And it's especially important when you can't actually see, in many cases, who it is you're talking to. It's like picking up a phone, saying, oh, hey, okay, yeah, I'll trust you. No, you have to take the information and see if it works. You have to use prudence. You have to use common sense.
And something else, something else I find fascinating is as we advance with quantum science, it's seeming that the world of the supernatural and beyond the veil is becoming more of a reality to mainstream science, wouldn't you say?
Well, absolutely. It's interesting, though. I think that honestly, Chris, yeah, there's so many examples of that I see in media, even coming out of mainstream science, that I just look at and I shake my head. I'm like, really? Like, yeah, but I know that. I do that every day. It's like when they say, oh, we think there's water on Mars. I'm like, really? Come on, we all know there's probably a lot more than that. Because it's just ridiculous. It's like the whole system is just, I don't even know what to say about it. But yes, absolutely.
And it seems that they're starting to trickle more of these truths and realities through the media, through TV shows and superhero shows and stuff like this, just to kind of sprinkle a little bit of what we're capable of in there. It's kind of like, to me, it's kind of like mocking.
Yeah, I think sometimes it absolutely is mocking because, again, you have these nasty guys sometimes in positions where they can do things like that and they're just pointing the finger. Of course, I think there's a lot of other people in positions that can create these types of media environments and presentations and movies and film and anime. Even the anime blows me away with the amount of information you can find within those series relating to so-called magic or whatever word you want to use, which is fascinating, because to me that means that there are other people out there that are trying to get information out against the whole matrix system, which again has turned that type of thing to the best of their ability into fantasy in the minds of most of the people. So again, it's time to jump outside that box, and for anybody that's able to jump outside that box to realize, wow, there is a lot of information. It is in the media, even right down to cartoon type media, that if I can just get enough of the puzzle pieces to fit information together, it begins to build a bigger picture. And it's that bigger picture, if we understand the quantum science and the applications and the progress of these things, where we can go with them, that gives us, that empowers us rather than disempowers us. And really that's what the entire system, sadly, the ancient system that we exist within is really, I don't know how anybody could deny that it's really in place to control and to disempower people. So anything that we can do that empowers us is huge. It is absolutely huge, especially when we can not just do it, but we can move forward with it and build upon that. Build upon the research, build upon the application, and never, ever, ever, ever allow anyone within the system to say to us, oh, that's crap. That's hogwash. You can't believe that. Oh, that's like Babel. That's like, New Age, blah, blah, blah. That's just backwards thought. No, none of that can stop us, because if, I'll speak personally, if any of that, if I allowed any of that to stop me, I wouldn't even be here today. So it gives me my passion, it gives me my success with bringing myself back to life, and not just that, but applying it to other people around the world, different, I mean, it's a huge part of the future, which brings up things like medicine and Monsanto and all of those things. We need to take things into our own hands, because we need to thrive instead of just survive, right?
Well, how far do you think the potential for our consciousness could go? Do you think, we have the abilities to heal our own cancers and deadly diseases that are incurable, if we can just get past all this crap that they're throwing at us in this matrix?
Yeah, I think that really the sky's the limit, and yet what it really, in my mind, what it comes down to is sort of individual, because it depends on the person. So if we take one person at a time, there's going to be there's going to be some people that will be able to sort of assimilate all of this and get through it. And I also believe that there's going to be some people that just can't pass that barrier into the new world, so to speak, into the new sciences, the legitimate thing, because the degree of brainwashing is just too severe. And I wish I believed it was a different way. I wish everybody could sort of jump on it, but it's going to be a rough road. But it's a hopeful road, especially for those of us that can traverse it okay.
Now, when you talk about these basically psychopaths that are running the show, is there an off-world or archonic power that may possibly be running the show behind the scenes? Because people like to think that, there's no way these people can be that psychotic on their own. But I tend to think that, humans do have the capability to be just evil. But I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
It's always so interesting because it brings up the subject of what's been obscured from the view or the minds of most of the population. As we're talking about technologies, the matrix, a lot of people still think that brushing their teeth with fluoridated toothpaste is really great, right? And the fact is that could you tell me again what you're asking?
I'm asking if you think that there are possibly darker archonic forces, you know, behind the scenes, possibly pulling the strings?
So that's another one of those things that has been obscured, because again, like the truth of these things that we've been talking about, the off-world presence, the simple fact that the universe is full, endless life and civilizations, it's hard to believe that most of the population has been shut down to the extent that that's not even real. So talk about taking away reality. Talk about taking away the information that truly empowers a full-on life and progress and health and abundance. And that takes me to what we were talking about like 2 minutes ago. And really what we want to do is take the past, that abundance, that flourishing culture of the past, ancient civilizations, and take that into the future. You asked how far we can take it. We need to take back the past. We need to take back the positive aspects, the good things of the past, and create that civilization again. We absolutely have to. But yeah, that includes what you were just talking about. That includes the fact that, look, we're not the only act in town. We're not the only act in town. And it's fascinating to watch media and what you were talking about earlier with things coming out and movies and etc. Increasingly suggest that. It makes you wonder if they're setting something up, but I don't think they're exactly setting something up to create. I think they're setting something up that's inevitable. And that gives me a great hope as well. That gives me an element of hope, because they see that, you know, they can't keep the information locked up forever.
And I have hope because I do see a lot more people waking up to this. Some close friends of mine actually paying more attention to some of these things that are going on behind the scenes. It does give me hope in that way. But I also see that the powers in control are getting scared and upping the censorship at the same time and trying to prevent these truths from being spread. Is that something you see as well?
Oh, completely, Chris. I remember just the other day I was on your YouTube channel and I hit something that you're talking about the algorithms and how they're clamping down on media. And it occurred to me, listening to you talk in that video, it occurred to me that's exactly what they've done to society. I love realizing the truth is they've created certain psychological algorithms through dogma and fear and mind control and all of these elements. They've done the same thing to society. They clamped down using algorithms of the minds and the souls and the spirits of the people. So absolutely, this is just another example of why it's so important that people get going on the access to knowledge that's really going to take us into the future. Because the more people that actually realize, okay, here's something that's real, instead of the BS that's out there on Google, or the BS that's out there on this, whatever, you know, all of this information, it sidetracks people. If we can manage to find enough real things, then we have real hope for the future. And that's what impassions me so much with some of the technologies and the applications there. And yes, it absolutely, as you know, segues into the consciousness, because when we talk about quantum always has an element of consciousness. It's always linked with the mind and extrasensory, so to speak, access to information. It's the quantum, it's remote. It's all of these things which in other times people would talk about telepathy or psychic abilities, intuition, remote viewing, all of these things. So what's missing? What's missing is the degree of health. With all the barrage of the poisons and the things that I listed there with GMOs, etc., we need to overcome those. So we need tools. And while it's obviously beneficial to sit and meditate and calm oneself and center oneself, so many practices are so beneficial. I believe we're at a critical juncture in all time right now, where we need to really find tools that work. And not just work, but maybe even speed this process up. And I believe that that's what these quantum technologies do.
Now, when it comes to the spirit world and our consciousness, life after death, what are your thoughts on this? Are we reincarnated? Is this just a training ground? Do we have a chance to escape this matrix?
Well, first of all, I think there's always a reason for hope, because I don't think anything has ownership over hope. I think there's always, where there's a will, there's a way, really. By the same token, I know that, again, this is an ancient history. This is not just, tomorrow talk or yesterday's talk. We're talking about a period of time where things have been going on that have been going on so long, it really takes some power to break this type of cycle or to change things. But yes, absolutely. Reincarnation, there's something, it's just yet another subject that has been pushed away from most of the world. You know how many people in my life I have talked about or broached that subject, and like, oh, come on, Tobias, I'm like, I just can't, from my perspective, I can't even I can't even relate to not understanding that that's a reality, because it's such a part of my life, my experience, and in fact, our history, our individual history. Can you think, Chris, of anything else that somebody in a powerful, nefarious position could take away from us that could disempower us more than knowledge of our true history? Not only our history, but of everything we've ever done, every place we've ever been, the people we've been with, the people we worked with. My God, without it, we almost are nothing except that which we are in the moment. It's extremely disempowering. So again, I love the subjects you're broaching, because these are critical. These are the pressure points of the things that we need to approach and deal with in order to get where we were in the past and bring that back into the present and the future. Exactly, Chris.
Now, there's some other trends that are happening today that I believe is trying to dehumanize humanity even more. We see transhuman trends. We see trying to basically get rid of the sexes and who we are as individuals. Do you see the same things occurring, and this agenda of trying to basically, it seems, get rid of duality?
Absolutely. Transhumanism, wow. What does that mean to me? That means that somebody somewhere out there wants to become the gods. Really, that's what it is. They want to synthesize. They want to be able to create synthetic everything. Everything synthetic, everything from synthetic perfumes to taste to flavors to food to crops to seeds. They want control over everything, and they want to travel outside of the physical biology, travel the universe, all of these things. It's very, very troubling, because I'm pretty sure, I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure that nature is pretty good at doing those things. Why would we think, or they think, that they could do a better job of what's already been in place for eternity, say? They can't. They should leave it alone. And going over to the other things you spoke of there, absolutely. It's all about separation. Separation. Men against women, gays against straights, blacks against whites, country against country. Let's build the wall. Let's do these things. Of course, it's disempowerment again. It's so obvious. It's disempowerment that works really well. It works really well, their disempowerment strategies, because the people are struggling for survival. They're trying to make enough money to eat. They're trying to afford healthy food, and they're in environments that aren't taken care of. It's a war zone out there. So yeah, just more subjects that remind us, wow, we're in a critical state. Some people, Chris, say, oh, I try not to be negative. I don't want to talk about this negativity. I don't want to think about that. It's a downer. And I agree, sometimes these things are downers, but someone has to be talking about these things, because unless we we approach these subjects and disseminate and go through the different aspects of these subjects, nothing's going to change. Nothing will change. We have to do something to create change. And it's the same with all of the subjects that we've spoken about so far.
Do you see humanity anytime in our lifetime getting back to the old ways, going back to the ancient technologies that used to be used for communication, for healing, for energy? Do you ever see that occurring in our lifetime?
I do. Look, I don't have a window to the future that's crystal ball clear, but what seems most plausible to me is, given the foothold, the system of the matrix has on this world, if something doesn't come along, mystically or supernaturally and destroy it, what I see happening would be pockets of people that you might call tomorrow people, like the TV show, or breakaway parts of society that absolutely will be using, living, and implementing the knowledge, the wisdom, the technologies, and the expertise to work behind the scenes of the mainstream, because I think the mainstream, which is the matrix culture, is going to remain there unless, again, something beyond me comes down from the heavens and stomps on somebody. And in fact, I would even go so far as to say, with a bit of confidence, that's already happening. The tomorrow people, the breakaway societies, I'm pretty confident that's already happening.
Very interesting. Now, based on your experiences, the ETs you've made contact with, I'm assuming they were benevolent ETs. Were these what you would consider physical beings or light beings, interdimensional?
I think all of the above, Chris. These people are physical. These people can project through technologies. These people can project astrally. Some of the experiences that I had really explain that quite a bit, because there was a time when I was quite ill due to the things I talked about earlier, when a person that I became friends with was able to actually facilitate out-of-body experiences. And not just out-of-body experiences, which is something that I tried really hard to learn myself, but it freaked me out. It literally freaked me out. So if I started going out of my body, I'd freak out and go back in. But this person was able to pull me out. So over the course of several years, we actually went on different adventures. Not really for the sake of adventure, really, but for the sake of information seeking, and to try to get information to heal ourselves, because we were both in a position of desperation when it came to that. So in answer to your question, I've experienced physical beings, non-physical beings, astral beings, projected beings. It's pretty much as you can think of is possible. The funny thing about those experiences, just as a side note here, I realized during those experiences, I realized a lot of the environmental reality that we have on this planet is so unique that no matter where we went or what we did, it was really, really hard to find information from other sources off planet. It's really, really hard. You can talk to the most advanced scientists of wherever, just use your imagination, and they'd be like, they could give. Very seldom did we find information that we could apply that really made a huge difference to us. Little pieces for sure, but not like earth-shattering information. And that was a part of the impetus, the push for me to realize, wow, I hear people saying, what is the phrase? They're not going to come down here and save us from ourselves. It's quite true. It's quite literal. because we have to, again, jump outside, across that line. We have to jump outside that box, because that takes us into a new dimension, a new reality, where we have hope to create new things for ourselves in an environment that is completely unique. Completely unique. There's nothing like it that I know of. There's nothing like this planet, and all of the good and bad, all of this whole mix. It's a fascinating reality. It's exciting too. It's not just scary sometimes or challenging other times. It's exciting, because when you jump onto these things and have these certain experiences, you realize, wow, this is what we're talking about. This is what we can do. If we can do this or we can do that, just imagine what's possible. Imagine what's possible. It truly is, the sky's the limit.
And you said something that I've heard plenty of times before, that they won't come and intervene or outright do anything to help us, that they are just basically waiting for us to help ourselves.
Yeah, I think there's such a wide variety of people out there. I sort of look at it as business. You can look at it, let's sort of compare it to our culture of this world. We have business, we have commerce, we have church and state, we have all of these different aspects of society. So you can have people that care about the spirit. You can have people that care about the mighty dollar. You can have people that care about control, like all of these different aspects, and it's the same out there. So I can't sit here and say, oh, nobody out there is going to come here and save us or try to care about us, because I believe there must be someone that does. However, at the same time, there's a lot of people out there that are looking at the people here and the environment here and what's happening as a business venture, or even a spiritual control venture. Like, they're just everything that we can think of. You know, a lot of times people like to say, oh, this is true and that's not true. And in the grand scheme of things, in many cases, I think a little bit of everything's the truth in so many cases, right? So yeah, there's a good, bad, and the ugly, man.
Right. And, so many Americans, well, people around the world are, basically not healthy overall. They wake up feeling crappy. They just go through the motions every day. For people who are just waking up to everything going on, and they want to heal themselves, and they're interested in this quantum energy healing, what could you tell them to that they could get started doing?
It all begins with health. And that's something that I every day almost someone asks me or broaches the topic. And that is always my answer. And I know it's not the favorite answer, because we kind of, like so many things in our time, certain subjects and certain language and certain keywords sort of water things down. They dilute the meaning of things, right? So for me to come out and say, oh, my response, Chris, is, you know what? The answer is health. It kind of falls short of hitting the spot, right? It's like, oh my God, man, but I'm trying to eat healthy. I go to the gym. I really mean that we must access these bigger things. We must find more people that will practice and use these technologies, because the health isn't just going to the gym, getting some biceps, right? Getting some abs going. It's the health of the mind and the spirit. So my point is always this: when I say health, I mean on every single level. Until we are, one, communicating telepathically, and two, seeing the future, three, communicating with other dimensions, all of these so-called science fiction supernatural things, we're not healthy. Until we can restore what was natural previously, we're not healthy. So that's what they mean by health. And the only things that I know, I'm sure there's other things, but the only things I know that will benefit this and take us towards that, or through it and past it, are the things that I work with. And how do I know that? Well, because I'm not the only one working with these things. We're advancing these things. We're continuing research. We've more than laid down groundwork. But the fact is, because it worked for me, because I'm here today, right? Look, I couldn't even string I almost hate to admit this, but it's a good example. With my spinal injuries and everything, I could barely string a sentence that made sense together for a long time. My mind was affected. All of these things were affected. I'm not trying to sell used cars. I'm excited about it because it worked for me, because I'm here and I can string a few words together now and I'm healthy, right? It's a big deal to me because it was critical. So if I use myself as an example of the bigger picture, use me as a microcosm and the world as the macrocosm, well, why can't we apply the same thing to the world? And that means the people and the planet. And I know we can. Well, I mean, we talk about energy technologies, plasma energy technologies. We're really talking about the same things in the natural environment, within the planets, the things that create the universe, the things that create the cosmos, all of this stardust and all of these things. We're talking about the same sciences. So when we're in an environment where these things have been tapped off, energy tapped off, we've all heard things like that, by other species, technologies, the archons, what have you, then it just makes sense to be able to access things where we can replace that ourselves with something that works, and that's what it's all about.
So what are some of these, I guess you could say, some basic technologies that people could start out with just to begin their journey?
Well, the first thing that I really found helpful to me was some of these orgone energy generators, or chi generators. Made a huge difference, because again, we talk about life force, or chi, or ki, or all of the different names for life force energy, and people really often think that, oh, well, I don't have to worry about that because it's natural in the environment. However, as I just alluded to, that energy has been tapped off by different groups, organizations here and there, and certainly even right down to our military and our governments, militarizing the science. Of course, they're going to use the advanced science, so they really do tap off of these things, and that means there is not an abundance of these things as there once was in the past, so that we need to replace them, as I mentioned. So yeah, chi generators are one really good thing. A lot of people will do that without machines. They will practice qigong and different things like this to move energy, or get it, the body, or facilitate the body to receive it and move it. And that's wonderful, because there are very beneficial things you can do with the environment. But generally speaking, unless people are practicing such things, they're not getting enough, right? And those things, those practices take time and energy, right? That in the modern world, it's sadly, we don't always have the time and energy. So yeah, chi machines are really great. Then it comes down to what do I do to fix something that's broken or sick or viral or et cetera, that the medicine doesn't work for, right? Or even one step beyond that, what if I don't want to take their medicines because I don't feel that it's the right thing for me? Is there something else? Are there other options? And then we get into things like Rife frequency generator systems. But those things do have a learning curve, right? A real learning curve. So we have access, everyone has access to these types of technologies. However, a lot of people choose not to sort of jump on it and make it their life, but instead some people will hire it out. Some people will, if they're lucky enough to have access and to where these things are, they'll just get other people to do it. But these are really systems that are beyond crucial for all of the previously stated reasons. This is absolutely the future. But these two things are, to me, some of the most crucial. You can get into other technologies that are related. You have technologies like plasma energy generators that, you know, even Rife, Royal Raymond Rife, back in the 30s, I think it was, I think he used that to evidently cure people or get rid of all sorts of nasty diseases. And I know I've heard of many other people in their modern time that are using similar systems with the same success. Of course, in the modern time, it's much more difficult to talk about those things because we have these massive officials that would love for nobody to believe that's even real, like so many of the other things we've spoken about. But I'm here to tell you these things exist. And that's an interesting subject that went through my mind earlier today about proof of success, proof of system, proof is what people want. And there's certainly that's a valuable thing. I love to have proof. However, what went through my mind was when you are at a point where nothing will work, the doctors, the experts, the medicines, anything you can think of doesn't work, you really don't care about proof. You just want something, anything that is successful. And no matter how much I have gone through over the years, how much skepticism I have applied, because I have, trust me, how much questions, how much, study, there's always an element of, you know what, sometimes you have to just do it, because sometimes nothing matters except success. So a lot of people are put off the trail of success because of this almighty scientific evidentiary proof. And I say, you know what, rethink things, because a lot of us come to that point where proof doesn't matter anymore. You just want it to work. And if you don't try it, you'll never know.
Very well said. Tobias, I want to thank you so much for coming on tonight. That was fantastic information. And before you go, let everyone know how they can find out more information about you and what you're doing.
Sure. Anybody can reach me. I have a website. It's my first name and last name.com. TOBIASBEHARRELL.com. And yeah, I'm on Facebook. I'm around. Every once in a while I'm on YouTube. And thank you very much, Chris. It's a pleasure to meet you, and really, really had a good time.
Yeah, that was great. I'll leave a link to your website in the description, and we'll have to have you back on sometime.
That would be my pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
All right, you have a good night.
You too. Good night, Chris.